In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, do souls make sense of it all? Or at least have fun trying. Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dog. Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dog. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that is also exhausted from this college football season, the chicken. What up, Doug?
Hey, I am tired.
Look, man, it has been so much to talk about. There's been so many crazy things going on. And, it's just like when you think when college football is looking like it's going to be this way, somebody comes in. I mean, and I don't know if it seems crazier this year than most, but for me, it just does. It seems all over the place. And, it's just hard to keep up with, man. And sometimes it's mentally and physically exhausting, especially for someone that does what we do, right?
That's right.
Because we gotta study these things and constantly stay on top of what's going on. And there's so many things that are happening. And just like what happened this week with James Franklin, something new. And it's kind of early for coaches, for teams to go ahead and start picking their players. But I guess James Franklin ain't doing nothing but sitting around the house or picking their coaches. James Franklin ain't doing nothing but sitting around the house right now. But he is officially a Hokie. He's going to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it seems early, and it does seem early. It does feel early, but the difference is we're still in the wake of the change of the landscape of college football. NIL and the transfer portal didn't just affect the players, it obviously affected the recruiting process, which means you need to have your head guy in there in place as soon as possible. Lane Kiffin has come out and denied that there's any such thing, but the story going around this week also has been that Ole Miss has put a timeline on him to make a decision. Is he staying? Is he going? We need to know something by Egg Bowl kickoff. And that's all part of that same thing. Ole Miss is looking at it from a program standpoint outside the coach, saying, look, we need to have a head guy here because of recruiting, because you're going to have a transfer portal coming up. These programs, these schools don't want to be caught up still in a coaching search, a prolonged coaching search that drags on into January and February before they've got the right guy.
Yeah, the rumors also that as far as Lane Kiffin, that um, his ex-wife and kids have visited Baton Rouge and Gainesville looking at houses. I don't know. I think Lane Kiffin still stays at Ole Miss. I think that's a chess play, maybe on his part. Maybe not so much with Ole Miss. I don't think he's playing Ole Miss. I think he's playing the world or college football. That's just my opinion. I mean, he may shock us all and go to one of those programs. Lane, if you're listening to this show, I will tell you this: don't. I know that they already said they're going to match your money unless there's some kind of internal conflict between him and upper management. You got it made where you're at. I don't think moving to an LSU or moving to a Florida or even a Penn State, I'll throw Penn State in there. I don't think Penn State's really in the talks. I think it's still staying in the conference. But I don't think it's a step up. Alabama or Georgia would be a step up. An Ohio State may be a step up. But I don't think at this current time in the SEC, an LSU or a Florida is a step up from Ole Miss.
I won't disagree, but I'll differ a little bit. I would, in my estimation, LSU is a blue blood in the SEC. Ole Miss is a great place to be. Lane has built a terrific program there in Oxford. So if there's any tear, in my estimation, it would be there. And that's just me speaking for me. That's not me speaking for Lane Kiffin. I don't think money's the thing that drives these guys. We'll match. So what? He's got more money, knows what to do with anyway. His kids aren't going to have to work. His grandkids aren't going to have to work. Whatever. Money at this point is just, okay, it's more money. I got to figure out something to do with it so I don't get taxed overly on it. That's probably Lane's accountant's nightmare, not Lane's nightmare. So I don't see that as being the motivating factor as much as it could be. Can I win national championships at Ole Miss? Yeah, he's proving that. They're 10-1. Look at what he's doing. He's showing that, yes, he can be successful at Ole Miss and he can have a great career if he stays at Ole Miss. But is it kicking around in the back of his mind as a competitor of, well, look at what Uncle Nick did at Alabama, a blue blood in the SEC, even way before Nick Saban got there? Can Lane Kiffin go to another blue blood in the SEC and maybe do the same? I don't know. I don't know if that's there for him or not. But if it is, then that would be a factor in his decision to leave. But it's definitely a toss-up. As I said, Lane has reiterated that there is no deadline. He doesn't know where that came from, and he loves it at Ole Miss. Still not a definitive comment, but that's what he's saying today.
Yeah, and I just, man, as you were talking, it made me think about this. It struck me, you might be onto something here. Lane has had great success at Ole Miss. There's no doubt about that, right? But he's done that through something, and I think he's really good at, which is transfer portal. He hasn't done it. You haven't seen Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin have these number 1, number 2, number 3 recruiting classes, right? Maybe he can't get that at Ole Miss. Maybe Ole Miss doesn't have the ability to do that. Maybe they don't have the draw to be able to do that where an LSU or Florida does. And I don't know, man. I think that's very interesting. That could be the difference. He's done well with NIL, or the transfer portal, bringing in, but Ole Miss does not do well when it comes to recruit. I don't say they're doing bad, but they're just not a top 5 recruiting class.
There's just something, we use the phrase blue blood program all the time, and we use it a lot in the SEC, but it's nationwide too, right? Like Notre Dame, Ohio State, that other school on the West Coast. UCLA had it for a long time until they just decided to completely set it on fire for whatever reason. Decide, we don't even know if we care about sports. But it means something. You can't take, we're a blue blood school to the bank necessarily. You can't buy your groceries with it like you can the actual money that these schools have. Conferences have revenue share. So, and I'm gonna bring it even closer to home to the University of South Carolina. The University of South Carolina, folks, has got the money to compete with anybody in the country and in this conference. But what don't they have? They don't have that wonderful little background, that blue blood history that says, yeah, but we're the University of South Carolina. They don't have that backstory that Alabama has, that Notre Dame has, that LSU has when they're meeting with these recruits coming out of high school, when they're meeting with these recruits in the transfer portal to say, yeah, I know that Ole Miss is willing to meet your needs on NIL or your demands on NIL or whatever, but we're LSU.
That's right, man. All right, man. Look, let's get into the rankings. They just dropped out a couple of days ago, and there was some movement in there. A lot of movement that's expected, but I think there's some things to watch within this new rankings. Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Georgia, they round the top 4. That was to be expected with a loss of Alabama. Texas Tech at number 5. Ole Miss, number 6. Oregon, number 7. Oklahoma jumped 3 spots. So now them and Texas just kind of flipped, right? But what's interesting to me, they didn't really flip. Texas dropped, and they dropped hard. A lot of these, you and I talked about the Longhorn fans. We deserve to get in. We deserve to get in. Buddy, they don't think you do because they dropped you to number 17. To be able to crawl back into that mix with 2 weeks left, there ain't no way. I don't see it happening. The Longhorns, I mean, even if they win out, and that means they beat the number 3 Texas A&M, that'll be a hard climb to get all the way back in there. I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is going to end up beating Arkansas this next their next contest, and so they'll pick up that 8th win. They'll go into the game against A&M at 8-3. But even if you beat Texas A&M, who is currently undefeated, so let's assume just for a minute while we walk down this little fantasy road that A&M is going to beat Samford, or excuse me, no, yeah, Samford. Sorry, Georgia's the one playing Charlotte this coming.
That's right.
But let's assume that they beat Samford. I think that's a safe bet. So they're 11-0 going in to face an 8-3 Texas Longhorn school. Even if Texas can pull off the upset against the Aggies, that drops A&M to 11-1 and would then elevate the Longhorns to 9-3. What did we see last year, fans? We saw 4. We saw 3 that were complaining about it. We saw 4 SEC schools at 9-3 that were on the outside looking in. Same scenario here, folks. I'm sorry, when Texas dropped to Georgia, they dropped out of the playoff contention. That's just the way that this system works. We're going to get expansion again. I get it. You get it. We all get it. But this year, the Longhorns will be sitting at home watching everybody else play for the national championship.
Absolutely. Alabama dropped 6 spots to number 10. I think that's. But they are a 2-loss team. Maybe they should be over Notre Dame. Alabama has definitely played a harder schedule than Notre Dame. They got Notre Dame at 9, Alabama at 10. But still, and then here's an interesting one. They jumped in. Now they're back in the conversation is BYU. Now we're looking currently at 2 Big 12 schools getting in. Now, BYU probably has to play Texas Tech again for the Big 12 championship. If BYU loses, there it goes. They're gone. If Texas Tech loses, I think you potentially have 2 in at that point. I think that's the only way you get 2 in, is if those 2 teams win out, go to the championship game, and BYU comes back and beats Texas Tech, then I think you've got 2 teams in there.
Keep in mind, it's getting pretty crowded up here right now, and there are a couple of things that you don't see in the top 12, right? Which automatically the Utes, yeah, it's nice that you're 8-2, but that it's as good as it's going to get for you sitting at number 12 right now. You're not going to get into the playoffs because you have to have at minimum an ACC champion into that mix, and you have to have a group of 5 bid in that mix. And as long as they've got Notre Dame as an independent at large in there, it's taken up 1 spot of the 2 that are needed. Okay, so Utah, you're out. And arguably BYU, if they were to lose, obviously they're going to be out as well. So you're looking at 1 Big 12 school because you need those 2 spots. And whether that ends up being Miami, Georgia Tech, or whomever out of the ACC, they're going to take a spot, and so is the at-large group of 5.
Yeah, like you said, Miami right now is the highest-rated ACC team. It looks like, if it goes that way, they're going to end up going into the championship game. You're only going to get 1 ACC team in, period. That's it. They could kiss their hopes of getting 2 in there. It's never it's never going to happen. I think the teams to really watch, I think your SEC teams are a lock for the most part. I think it's going to be A&M. I think it's going to be Georgia, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and that's and Alabama. That's your 5 SEC teams. That could move some, but more than likely, probably not. If Oklahoma or Bama was to drop 1 more game and Vandy was to win out, you could see a Vandy elevating there, but probably unlikely. They're a 2-loss team, but it is possible. But But to me, the team to really watch for is two, and it's not in the SEC. It's the Fighting Prophylactics. They are just kind of riding this under the radar type thing, and they are a 2-loss team. They could jump in, and so could Michigan. I would not count Michigan from climbing. They're at 18 now. That's a big climb. There's no doubt about that. But went out, beat Ohio State, go to the Big Ten championship. Maybe they can sneak in. So, and the one group of 5 team that's right now is Tulane. I've seen some things out there that Tulane's going to win it all.
I saw an interesting stat this past weekend where the top 3, if you were in the top 3 in the college football playoff rankings, your odds to win the whole thing are astronomical. Meaning, folks, that if you're 4 through 12, it ain't happening. You'll have a really great showing and a fun story to tell your grandchildren about, but you're not going to win the national championship if you're outside of the top 3 teams. Now, let's back up to something that you said a minute ago, talking about Oklahoma and Alabama and the SEC schools, in your view, primarily being a lock. I don't know if you can say that yet. That's the one thing about this week, and really the next 2 weeks, where this one's actually exciting to a degree, maybe as much, if not a little bit more, than last year's chase for the race. And that is Oklahoma's got to play Missouri this week. And Missouri, to our surprise, found a way to win against Mississippi State last week. We thought Mississippi State was going to go in there and own it because Missouri doesn't have a quarterback. Ahmad Hardy had different ideas with 300 yards on the ground against Mississippi State. So that's going to be a tough matchup for Oklahoma this weekend. Alabama, not this weekend, but the next, has to play in the Iron Bowl. And that's one of those rivalries where the records go out the window. And this is just absolute, we don't like you, you don't like us, let's roll up our sleeves and fight after the turkey settles. And that's what's going to happen with Alabama and Auburn in that game. And who knows, we've seen crazy things happen in the Iron Bowl. So the pressure is still on Alabama to hold at 2 losses and not pick up a third. Either of those 2 schools, Oklahoma or Alabama, you add a third notch in that loss column, you're out.
You're out. And Alabama, I think I'm right by saying this. I think the Iron Bowl is played on the Plains this year. I don't think it's in Tuscaloosa, and that's not going to be an easy. It should be an easy win, but like you said, it's an Iron Bowl, and crazy things happen in that game. Yeah, Alabama, and I think the only teams in the SEC that can afford to drop a game and be in is A&M, Georgia, and Ole Miss. A&M being undefeated, Georgia having 1 loss, and Ole Miss having 1 loss. But now I'm gonna disagree with you on something you said a second ago. You said you saw something. I think you said you agreed with it, that the top 3 teams, which is Ohio State, Indiana, and A&M.
I didn't say I agree with that. Stuff.
Okay.
I heard. I was
okay. I wanted to make sure.
It was a particular week of the rankings, and so it might have been whatever they were last week. That week of rankings, if you were in the top 3 during that, then your odds of winning the national championship were astronomical, and that came from ESPN.
Now, I would agree that your odds are probably pretty good, but yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't count out a Georgia. I wouldn't count out an Ole Miss. I don't even know if I would.
Wait. This is earth-shattering news.
Well,
for 4. Give me a break. Let's try and keep the show real. We're South Carolina. Hint of realism, kind of like maybe not too much paprika in the paprikash, but just a tint of the flavors there. Like you're not in the top 3, and that's cool. I'm not saying that you don't have a shot at winning it, but if the statistics say that it's going to be one of these top 3 schools, which the top 3 schools are the same as they were last week, we know that Ohio State's on a tear. Do I think that Ohio State's going to win the whole thing this year? I don't. Indiana, oh my gosh, what a year they're having. And that's after the year they had last year. Like I know I thought that was a fluke, right? But Mendoza is just having this ridiculous season.
Agree.
Texas A&M. I'm going to say this from a completely different perspective than what I said in our reaction show from last weekend, and that is I'm going to focus solely on Texas A&M. They may have had to go into the locker room and had some real difficult conversations with themselves as players, as position coaches, as group coaches, to get things right. They got as close to being scared as you can be. They're all going to, no, we knew this, we knew that. You were down 30-3 at the half, and you rallied and came back. You put 21 points on the board in the third. You scored the needed go-ahead touchdown in the fourth to beat a rival SEC school to remain undefeated. That's the kind of game that pops up in an undefeated season to propel you into a championship, to convince you that, yeah, we are real. We can handle the absolute of adversity and overcome. And in my opinion, Screaming Bob, you guys exhibited championship behavior. My pick right now, Texas A&M Aggies to win the whole thing.
Ooh, wow. Huh. All right. They're playing good football. There is no doubt about that. And what they did against Carolina is that a team that is well played, that is playing well and being well coached, or is that a team that went against a team that faltered at the end? I'm going to probably go with a little bit of both, probably more lean towards a good team with being well coached. To be able to bounce back for a win against South Carolina last week. I'm not saying
adversity is adversity. So I'm not putting any kind of focus or recognition on it was Carolina. You plug in any school in the nation. Even some of these weird little Eastern Illinois, who Alabama is playing this week, right? So Charlotte, who Georgia's playing this week. Plug any school, even LSU, whatever. I don't care the school. What Texas A&M did last week that's driving this in me, it has nothing to do with the fact that it was South Carolina. Are they well coached? Did they flop? And whatever. That has no bearing. It's the fact that Texas A&M had a 4-score adversity, 4 scores to overcome. And they did it. They didn't care who was on the other side of that line of scrimmage, whether it had been South Carolina, Alabama, Notre Dame, or, the 4 horsemen from the Newt Rockne era. They laced them up, they strapped it tight, and they went to work. And they overcame in that second half. It's the adversity, conquering the adversity that's driving me right now to say, go Aggie.
Yeah, they're definitely playing good football, man. There's no doubt about that. And my buddy John, I'm sure he's loving every bit of this. I like the way Georgia's playing down the stretch. I think they're really, a really complete team. But I also like Ohio State. I know Ohio State, I don't know if they've been quite tested yet, but they're playing great football. It's going to be a really interesting playoffs. I think you've got 6 teams, 7 teams in there that could just duke it out, man, and it's going to be fun to watch. There's no doubt about that. Let's get into this week's games because there are some that are pretty good, and we're going to start with the SEC. And we're going to start with my Georgia Bulldogs. A number 4 Georgia Bulldogs, 9-1, have to host a 1-9. Georgia's favored to win that game by 43.5, over and under 53.5. Georgia's going to own this game. It's Charlotte's going to get paid and move on.
Is it Puglisi? What's the backup quarterback?
Puglisi.
he's going to get some valuable time in this game to help prepare him for any type of odd situations that Georgia might face in an SEC championship matchup, like they did last year against Texas in the playoffs. Instead of having a guy come in, maybe not rusty, but certainly not warm to the season like Stockton had to face at the end of the year last year. Stockton has had a great season this season. He's going to get the chance to go out there in the first quarter, put up a few numbers, but look for a lot of guys to get opportunities for Georgia in this.
Yeah, I was at the Biltmore this past weekend, and I was standing in line for a wine tasting, and there was some ladies, and I had my Georgia pullover on, and there were some ladies in front of me, and like a group of 5 of them or something like that, and they were all from Charlotte, and I don't know if they went to Charlotte, did they work at the University of Charlotte? I don't know, but they brought up the game, and they were like, said, take it easy on us. We're going to the game. It'll be fun to watch. I said, yeah, it'll be fun to watch. I said, and you guys will earn your paycheck, and we thank you for the warm-up game. And she said, and this lady goes, look, everybody wins in these games. And I was like, there's no participation trophies in college football, pal. I did. I told this lady that.
Well,
I mean,
if she's referring to the check that they're getting, then sure. If you want to call that
yeah,
a win, sure, whatever.
yeah, it was funny. We talked about A&M a lot today already so far. So number 3, A&M 10-0 has to take on a 1-10 Samford, School of the Blind, a college. They're playing in Kyle Field, College Station. There is no line on this game because there doesn't need to be one. A&M's going to have a great warm-up game.
A&M needs to, and after all that I just said in praise of the Aggies, listen very carefully. A&M has to watch out for this game. Well, but why? What about all the stuff that you just said? Because of what you did last week, because of how monumental that was, because you are now the one of a 1 against 286 of win-loss record when you're down by 27 points at the half. You are the one that overcame those odds. Don't get too high on yourself. And you also have to look forward to Texas next week. Don't fall by the wayside against Sanford. They need to come out. They need to button this thing up quick. I believe that they will, but this has all the potential of being one of those that could make a squeaky wheel really, really loud on Saturday.
That's right. This next game, man, a conference game, is going to be really fun to watch. Number 8, Oklahoma. They are 8-2, 4-2 in the SEC. Has to take on a 7-3, 3-3 in the SEC. Number 22, Missouri. Oklahoma. They are playing in Norman. Oklahoma is favored by 7.5 points. Over and under 42.5. I think Venables really has his team firing on all cylinders. They're playing great football. Mateer has been back. He's gotten into his rhythm from his injury on his hand. I think John Mateer and Venables take care of Mizzou pretty handedly in Norman.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that it's in Oklahoma is one thing. Here's the other glaring fact. Missouri obviously is going to have to rely heavily on the run, and what Oklahoma has that Mississippi State doesn't is they have the Sooner defense. And they're not going to let Missouri just hand the ball off all afternoon and gash them for 300 plus yards on the ground. I like Oklahoma in this ball game.
Yeah, look what that Sooner defense did to the Crimson Tide's offense. They held them at bay in a lot of ways, man. So I'm with you on that. I think that defense is going to stack the box and stop Hardy from getting 300 yards. I don't think Eli's got enough of his evil dust to sprinkle over that field and make any difference. Alabama, you mentioned this game earlier. Number 10, Alabama, 8-2, is taking on a 3-8 Eastern Illinois, and there's no line. Alabama with an easy win. Hopefully they work some stuff out and keep and stay focused on the Iron Bowl and make sure that they beat Auburn the week prior, the week after.
Yeah, this is another one of those win-win games, I guess, where Eastern Illinois is thankful for the donation to the cause, and let's get back to Illinois as quickly as possible. Alabama, coming off of that tough loss last week against Oklahoma, is going to be looking to make a statement on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. And look out, Eastern Illinois, you are in the way.
Absolutely. Here's another chump warm-up game. 4-6 struggling Auburn, War Eagle, Tigers, identity crisis, coachless team is taking on ready a 9-1 Mercer. So you're saying there's a chance? They're playing in Auburn. I still think Auburn takes care of this team, goes to 5-6, and is hoping they can pull out an upset the next week to be able to go bowling.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that this game could end up being close. Auburn has relied more heavily on defense this year than they have offense. And let's not slouch. I mean, you're playing college football and you've got 9 wins to 1 loss from Mercer. I mean, that's no small achievement. I think that they have the opportunity to make it an interesting game. But at the end of the day, you're Mercer and you're going into Jordan Hare Stadium to face a proven, again, blue blood SEC program. You're going home with a loss.
This next game is going to be fun to watch because there's a lot of implications in with one of these teams. I just say one. Maybe with both of them. I don't know. She got a 5-5, 2-5 in the SEC. Kentucky is taking on a number 14, 8-2, 4-2 in the SEC. Vanderbilt. They are playing in Nashville. Vandy is favored by 9.5 points, over and under 53.5. If Vandy wins this game, they are still making their case as a 2-loss SEC team to propel themselves, because if an Alabama was to slip, if an Oklahoma was to slip, then maybe Vandy's trying to make the case where they're that team that jumps in. So they have to play good football. Kentucky needs to win this game. I don't know if they'll fire Stoops, even with a loss, because Vandy's a good team, but I like Vandy in this game.
You've still got quite the uphill climb if you are Vanderbilt, because after this ball game, which I think that they're going to win, you still have to play Tennessee. So there's still work to be done to even stay in the conversation of, do we deserve to get in? If one of these teams loses, do we deserve to get in? It's an uphill climb for Vanderbilt. But hey, they've been that team all year that's not afraid to go to work. For Kentucky, it's in Nashville. We've talked about that. Going on the road in the SEC is difficult. And you've got another game coming up next week against Louisville, another team that's been playing really, really well this year. So a lot of work yet to be done for them. Can Kentucky go bowling? Can they pick up that 6th win either this week or next week? I think your odds are that if it's coming next week. I don't see that you're going to pick one up against the Commodores.
I don't think so. And, going an SEC team going to Nashville to play Vanderbilt in years past, I'm not saying it wasn't somewhat of a hostile environment, but I guarantee you that's more elevated today than years past because of the way that Vandy is playing. This school, this town, this fan base is probably really pumped up in what this team is doing. And it's going to be electric inside that stadium, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And they're doing things to continually improve that stadium to create a better environment for not only the fans, but a tougher environment for the opponent.
That's right. There's another SEC matchup. A 2-8, 0-6 in the SEC. Arkansas takes on a number 17, 7-3, 4-2 in the SEC. Texas. Texas is favored by 8.5 points. They're playing in Austin. I don't see why Texas doesn't bounce back and win big in this game.
I don't know that it'll be big, simply because Arkansas has been able to get points on the board this year. The one thing that they can't do is stop anybody else. So I like Texas to win this ball game. I think you said the spread was 8.5.
It is.
I think that they can cover that. I don't think that translates into a blowout that they win by 3 scores or anything like that. I like Texas by about 10 in this matchup, just because Arkansas is going to put points on the board. They're going to take some time off of that clock away from Texas. But yeah, I think that Texas comes back. I think that Arch continues to show some growth and some maturity now in that growth. He's had some adversity, plenty of it this year. And I think the Longhorns come out.
This next game, a 6-4 Coastal Carolina takes on a 3-7 South Carolina Gamecocks. They are playing in Williams-Brice Stadium, Columbia, South Carolina. South Carolina is favored to win this game by 23.5 points. 49.5 is the over and under. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like this spread at all. I actually think Coastal keeps it much closer. Not because I think they're that good of a team versus South Carolina. I just think the wind has been knocked out of Carolina's sails, and I don't know how much enthusiasm they're going to go into this game. I just don't know.
I'm going to tell you some what I consider troubling comments as it relates to this game. The focus, the buzz, if you will, in the greater Columbia area of South Carolina is already on Clemson. The comments made by Shane Beamer is already in his eager anticipation of after the Clemson game. They know that they're not going bowling. Not only are the playoffs off of the table, not only is the SEC championship off the table, going to a bowl game is off the table. So this coaching staff is already focused on everything after football, after the final whistle against Clemson, and that is locking down the best offensive coordinator hire that they can make, the best offensive line coach that they can make. Who are they going to be able to lock down in terms of incoming players for next year? And who are they going to be able, or are they going to be able to lock down players on the current roster to prevent anybody from going into the transfer portal? That's distraction, folks. And when you've got a team like Coastal Carolina sitting at 6-4, nothing to get overly excited about, Chanticleer fans, but you're 6-4 in the Sun Belt. You're going bowling already, and you're facing a school that's paying you a lot of money to come and play them this weekend, and they're not going to a bowl game. Carolina's not playing with, well, we got nothing else to lose. Let's go out there and bruise some egos. Carolina's playing with, how do I get out of this season without wanting to change schools, or without wanting to change majors or change girlfriends, or whatever it is that these players are thinking about. That's what seems to be on the mind of the Gamecock program, is getting out instead of pushing forward. You have the opportunity to pick up 2 more wins. And is it respectable to close out a regular season at 5-7? No, but it sure looks a lot better than 3-9.
Absolutely. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago who was going to win this game against South Carolina and Clemson next week, I'd have told you South Carolina. I don't know if I'll say that now. And I think I've told you that all season long. I thought South Carolina was going to beat Clemson. You had your doubts. You're like, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. I just don't know if South Carolina's, like I said, I think they're trying to just get finished, get out of the season. They want to be done.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, whether we want to talk about our belief in the coaching, the head coach anyway, our belief in the talent that's on the roster or not. South Carolina has played like they've got a bad case of the flu this whole year. And it just doesn't matter. Every time they get up out of bed, their head's spinning, their sinuses are draining, whatever. They're just not operating at peak performance this season. It shows on the field. It shows in the record. It's now showing more and more in the attitude coming from these post-game press conferences, coming from these midweek press conferences. I think that they just want to get out of this season and be done with it. Put it behind them. Everybody's already making guarantees, and I say everybody, I mean Shane Beamer, we didn't expect to be 3-7 this year, not talking about the playoffs, but we will be talking about our position in the playoff rankings next year. I love your enthusiasm, big guy, but you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, for sure. And you better hope that the South Carolina Gamecock program is still going to be behind you next year. That's what you need to worry about. You need to be you need to be rubbing elbows with your players, your star players, like we talked about earlier this week. You need to keep your people that you've got, man. You need to keep the Dylan Stewarts. You need to keep the Lenore Sellers of your team. I don't know. I don't know what grade Nick Harbor's in, but if he's got another year eligibility, you need to worry about keeping that dude on the field because he's a monster, and you need to be hitting the transfer portal extremely hard. But yeah, you got to convince some people to stay, man. That needs to be your focus. This next game could be very interesting to watch. Very, very, very interesting. A number 20, 7-3, 3-3 in the SEC, Tennessee has to take on a 3-7, 2-6 in the SEC, Florida, 2-5, excuse me. Tennessee is favored to win that game by 3.5 points. They are playing in Gainesville. I like Florida in this game.
This game is oddly enough, again, a 3-7 team, and I just got done railing against my own 3-7 program. But a 3-7 Florida has been just such a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, where they'll come out and they will play lights out against a team that you know is going to destroy them, even post Napier firing. And then the next week, where you think that, man, look at how they played last week, they got a real chance, and then they lay an egg. How do you pick this game? I like Tennessee in this one. I think that the Vols are just too much. We thought, I've gone back to it several times. We thought at the beginning of the season, we thought in the offseason that Tennessee was going to be an absolute dumpster fire this year. And they're not the championship contender, the playoff contender that they seemed to be last year. But this year, they're definitely a winning program. They're already locked in to go into not only a bowl game, but probably a pretty decent one outside of playoff world. I like the Vols to take this one down in Gainesville from Florida. I like them to help put a nail in the coffin for Florida and just say, you know what, we need to button this one up too. Let's see what we can do against the Seminoles next week. I like Tennessee.
An 8-2 Western Kentucky is taking on a 6-4 LSU in Baton Rouge. LSU is favored to win that game by 23.5 points. I like LSU and Van Buren in this game. However, I don't like this spread. I think Western Kentucky can keep it close.
I'm going to tell you, I like everything about LSU in this game. And I heard a comment made. I don't know what podcast he was on. It could have been his own for all I know. But a gentleman that I have absolute respect for, and yet he is the key component in one of my worst memories as a Gamecock fan, and that is David Pollock. Yes, the man with the strip sack in the end zone against Corey Jenkins in the Lou Holtz era. David Pollock made a comment about LSU this past week that they win in spite of their coaches. He referenced the national championship under Ed Orgeron, indicating to me that he doesn't think as much of Big O as we do. He referenced the national championship under Les Miles. We saw what Les Miles didn't do when he went to Kansas. Okay, so LSU is just one of those interesting teams, football programs, that they can do some pretty great things in spite of their coach. Brian Kelly is gone. So maybe even in spite of the fact that you don't have that head coach personality there yet in Baton Rouge. And are they hunting lane? Are they close to getting lane? Who knows? But LSU is just that quirky team that those guys come out and they rally around the ghosts of Baton Rouge, and they will put a hurting on the Hilltoppers. I like LSU and the spread in this one.
You like the spread?
Oh, I do. I think they're going to go out and they're going to make some examples.
Wow. We shall see. Now, I am in Midland, Texas this week for work. And every time I come to Midland, I usually stay with a buddy of mine. And this guy is a Big Ten fan. He is a Cornhusker. Born and raised in Nebraska, loves the Cornhuskers. And I mean, and he bleeds them, man. And so I told him that I was going to be recording this thing this morning from his house. And he said, I give you permission. That's what he told me. Under one condition, I say something good about Nebraska. So I've been sitting here thinking about what can I say good about Nebraska. And the only thing I have to say is this is what I'll do. A 7-3 unranked Nebraska, 4-3 in the Big Ten, is taken on a 4-6, 1-6 in the Big Ten. Penn State in Pennsylvania. Penn State is favored by 9.5 points. I know Nebraska is without Dylan Raiola, but I like Nebraska in this game. There you go, Damon.
I like the Huskers in this game. I'll give you something else positive about the Cornhuskers. You're not Colorado. I'll say that. Now, I love what Matt Rule is doing there in Nebraska, how he's rebuilding that program. Like you said, they've got 7 wins. So you're going bowling. The Big Red Machine is coming back there in Nebraska. I like the Cornhuskers this week to continue to build that this year.
Yeah, I mean, and let's say they beat Penn State. That's now 8 wins. And then they have to play Iowa. And Iowa's a good team. So, but let's say they are able to pull out a win against an Iowa. Man, Matt Rule went 9-3 at Nebraska. That's pretty good. Even a 7-5. Let's say he loses the next 2 games. Even a 7-5 season, he's went bowling back-to-back years at Nebraska. That's a big turnaround from that program. You and I have talked about Nebraska in the past, that college football is better when you have them Cornhuskers and they're relevant. I think he's bringing that team back to relevancy, and I love it. I love what's going on in Nebraska.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, let's go to the top 25. Because there are some okay games. A 5-5 Rutgers, 2-5 in the Big Ten is taking on number 1, 10-0, 7-0 Ohio State in the big at Ohio State. I don't know how Ohio State keeps getting this easy. I mean, they just drew the luck. I don't know, man. They just have such an easy schedule. Ohio State's 31.5 favorite in that game. I think Ohio State trounces Rutgers.
I agree. I'm going to say this about scheduling real quick. And again, I say this actually in defense of schools like Ohio State, schools like Alabama, especially under the Saban era, schools, I can't really say about Texas right now, but schools that appear to have such an easy walk to the postseason versus schools like my own that like to get upset about the schedule. We had to play these and these and these, and yeah, you did. But your schedule is always going to look easy when you keep coming up with W's. And that's something that Ohio State has been able to do for quite some time now. They just keep on winning. So it seems like it doesn't matter who you put in front of them. They're going to come out with a win on Saturdays. And so is it that, or do they know someone in the scheduling department at the Big Ten conference office? I don't know. But if you keep winning, it makes everything look easy.
Absolutely. A number 13, 8-2, 4-2 in the ACC, Miami, the Fighting Becks, is taken on a 3-7, 2-4. Now they have a coach, Virginia Tech. They're playing in Virginia. Miami is favored by 17.5 points. Miami I think Beck has another great game. I think the good Beck shows up in this game and handles business at Virginia Tech. I don't know if James Franklin is allowed to be there.
He'll probably be there, but he's not going to be on the sidelines wearing headsets or nothing like that.
So maybe that presence of their new coach this week, maybe that helps Virginia Tech. I don't know. I don't think it'll be enough to overcome what Carson Beck is going to do to that team.
Yeah, I think that other than the potential rally shot to the arm of, wow, James Franklin's going to be our guy next season, maybe that does something for you emotionally. But I'm going to tell you, like I've said about every Miami game that we've had in the last few weeks, this game comes down to Carson Beck and which uniform he wants to throw the ball to. 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions this year. He's just got to make sure he's throwing it to the right guys.
That is an awful stat. I mean,
it's not a good look.
It is not a good look.
I don't think that this is what he had in mind when he said, no, I'm not going to go pro. I'm going to go to Miami. for a year and hone my skills, sharpen my craft. Yeah, you probably should have just gone ahead and gone to the draft, bro.
Hey, I don't think Miami is. I don't think they had that in mind when they signed him a $6 million check or wrote him a $6 million check. I don't think they're
Certainly
going to go.
not.
I think you're going to throw half of your. You're going to throw half as many picks as you did touchdowns. I don't think they had that in mind.
Yeah, we've got a
Uh,
great offer for you. We'd like for you to stay under 3,000 yards on the season. We'd like, maybe half as many interceptions as you have touchdown passes. And how about keep the touchdown passes under 32? How about that? I don't think
yeah,
that was the pitch.
no, I don't think so either. But you never know. All right, here we go. A number 9, 8-2. Non independent team takes on a 3-7 Syracuse. Notre Dame is favored to win that game by 35.5. They're playing in South Bend. I think Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman just continue to roll. I think Jeremiah Love could potentially have another amazing game to allow him to catapult into that Heisman talk because he's having a fantastic season. We'll see, but I think Notre Dame wins big.
Yeah, absolutely. CJ Carr is having a great year. He's just under 2,500 yards for the season. His touchdown to interception ratio quite different than a Mr. Carson Beck. 21 touchdowns through the air and 6 interceptions for the young man. And Jeremiah Love is having an absolutely amazing season. I don't think the Orange are going to be anywhere near enough in South Bend on Saturday. Notre Dame walks away easy with this win.
Yeah. So here's a team we haven't really got to talk about very much this season, but we are now. A number 24, 8-2, 5-1 in the American is Tulane is taking on a 5-5, 3-3 in the American Temple. They are playing in Philadelphia. Look, Tulane is favored by 7.5 points. I like Tulane to continue to. I mean, they're trying to do something to get that bid into the playoffs. I like Tulane in this game.
Funny thing for me, and I'm with you on this. I think Tulane wins this ball game. But the funny thing for me is how many times have we seen the leadership position in the group of 5 change hands? It's been South Florida, it's been Memphis, it's been back to South Florida, and now here we are talking about Tulane and the Green Wave. There's a lot to look out for against Temple. Their running back, Ducker's got 729 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground this year. Wide receiver, Holloway, 445 yards to the air and 6 touchdowns of his own at the wide receiver position. So some big guys to look out for offensively there for Temple. But I do think that Tulane pulls it out this week.
Yeah, and you left out one of those other teams that have jumped in there too, man. North Texas has had their name in that as that group of 5 team. So who knows, man? I still think it's up in the air. There's still 2 weeks, and it changes every week.
That's right.
A 5-5, 4-3 in the Big 12. K-State takes on a number 12, 8-2, 5-2 in the Big 12. Utah, the old Utes. Utah is favored to win that game by 17.5. They are playing in Salt Lake City. I like Utah to win this game.
Yeah, I think Utah hangs on and wins this one. I like their chances at home against K-State. K-State isn't having the year that I think anybody expected them to have. I think that they'll still find that 6th win this season to go to a bowl game, but it's not going to be this week.
Yeah. A number 18. Sorry, man, my contact messed up. All right, 8-2, 5-1 in the Big 10. Now that's a key. Y'all listen to that. 5-1. That's
6-1.
6-1. Excuse me. In the Big 10, 1 loss. Number 18 Michigan is taking on a 4-6, 1-6 in the Big 10. Maryland. They are playing in Maryland. Michigan is favored by 13.5 points. I like Michigan to win this game and getting themselves in a position to knock out Ohio State next week.
Ooh, so a win and then some. I like Michigan in this ball game. I don't think that Maryland is having the kind of year that they need to have to be much of a threat to anybody, even at home. I think the Wolverines walk away with this one, and they do set themselves up very nicely for a big matchup against Ohio State.
This next game, the Fighting Christians, after getting beat by the Mormons last week, have to go to Houston and take on a number 23, 8-2, 5-2 in the Big 12. TCU is 6-4, 3-4 in the Big 12. They're playing in Houston. Houston is favored by 1.5 points. I like TCU in this game.
Wow. See, I like Houston all the way in this one. I've looked against Houston in some other matchups this year, and they have proved me wrong. So I'm going to get on the Cougar train here and say that they're going to take out TCU on Saturday.
This next game, again, has really big playoff implications if you if you really look at this. So a 7-3, 5-1 in the ACC, Pittsburgh takes on a number 16, 9-1, 6-1 in the ACC. All one-loss schools, man. Georgia Tech. They are playing in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is favored by 2.5 points. I think Georgia Tech and Haynes King is going to be too much for Pitt and keep him in there. But I do like Georgia Tech, but this should be a fun game to watch because there's a lot of implications in this game.
Pitt is a good football team. Pitt is a well-coached football team. Pitt is not enough to go to Atlanta and take it away from Georgia Tech. I like the Ramblin' Wreck.
Your favorite team, a number 21, Fighting Curtis's, Illinois. They are 7-3 overall, 4-3 in the Big Ten, is taking on good gracious, just a very struggling 3-7, 1-6 in the Big Ten, Wisconsin. They are playing in Madison. Illinois is favored to win that game by 7.5. I don't think 7.5 is enough. I don't think it matters that they're playing in Wisconsin. I like the Fighting Curtises in this game, probably by 2 scores.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say, I like what Brett Bielema is doing there in Champaign, Illinois, with the Illini. I like them big against Wisconsin on Saturday.
This next game, another big one in the Big 12, man, if you ask me. A number 11, they are inside, barely. BYU, they are 9-1, 6-1 in the Big 12, is taking on a really good 7-3, 5-2 in the Big 12, Cincinnati. They're playing it in Cincinnati. Give me Cincinnati. I think they're going to win.
Going the same way. I like the Bearcats for the upset in this ball game. BYU is got a great team. They're having a great season, but I think Cincinnati works to keep it interesting in the Big 12, and they knock down the Mormons a peg.
This next game, man. I like Coach Prime. Don't get me wrong, and I'm praying for this guy. He's having a lot of health problems this year. He's also having a lot of coaching problems this year. But a number 25, 7-3, 5-2 in the Big 12, Arizona State is taking on a 3-7, 1-6 in the Big 12, Colorado. They are playing in Boulder. I've been in Boulder. I go to Boulder quite often for work. It's a beautiful town, very cool, but that's not going to win you a football game this weekend. Arizona State is favored by 7.5 points. I like Arizona State.
Yeah, hands down. We talked earlier about the thing about Nebraska not being Colorado. The problem with Colorado is you're Colorado. It's not going to work out well this week. The Sun Devils are going to come in there. Sam Levitt's going to have a pretty decent game. He's not had the best season I think that we thought he was going to have this year. 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, so he does protect the ball. He just doesn't necessarily light up the field. But I do like the Sun Devils in this ball game.
All right, this leaves us one more game. A 8-2, 6-1, number 15, Southern Cal, the Fighting Prophylactics, is taking on a 9-1, 6-1 in the Big Ten, number 7, Oregon. They are playing in Eugene. Oregon is favored by 9.5 points. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know who to pick in this game. Lincoln Riley and Southern Cal has been the sneaky kind of just flying under the radar, winning games. You know, they've only lost 2 games this year. Oregon's 9-1. But Oregon has, is another one of those teams that's just They're not electric like they were in years past. They're just winning. I I like Oregon in this game. I'm going to go with Oregon.
I am going to come back to you in a moment. First, I'm going to bring out a letter from my dear Uncle Kenny sent to his average nephew, Chicken. There are Saturdays in the South when the whole world feels alive, when the trees shimmy a little in the breeze, the grills smoke a revival meeting, and even the family dog starts pacing because he knows something important is brewing. It's the kind of mornings when you can smell charcoal and optimism at the same time, when neighbors lean over fences just to ask, "Y'all ready?" And everybody knows exactly what they're talking about. The air feels charged, like the world has tapped directly into the power grid, and somewhere a radio crackles to life with the voice of a man who's been calling games since the Eisenhower administration. And then there's this weekend, when college football hands us a schedule so dull it ought to be shrink wrapped and sold at a Dollar General under the label miscellaneous disappointments. It's the sort of lineup that makes you wonder if the sport is gently encouraging us to run errands instead. Maybe clean the garage, rake some leaves, or have that uncomfortable conversation with your in-laws you've been avoiding. God forbid, but weekends like this make you think about watching the NBA. Gross! Even the dog stops pacing, looks at the TV, and goes back to sleep. I flip through the slate of games the way a man rifles through a Waffle House jukebox just looking for a song that won't make him question his life choices. Nothing. Not a single tune worth dropping a quarter on. Just static, filler, and a whole lot of why are we doing this to ourselves? Let's start with the Big Ten. A league so boring this weekend it could be used as a non-lethal sedative. Bless their hearts, they try. They really do, but it's hard to get worked up over a conference that stretches from New Jersey to Washington like somebody spilled a map and said, that's close enough. The Big Ten has no natural rivalries anymore. It's a long-distance relationship pretending to be a marriage. The teams are so scattered you half expect the announcers to give weather updates for different time zones during the same drive. They call Ohio State Rutgers a conference game. It's not a rivalry, it's a commuter flight. Meanwhile, down in God's conference, the Southeastern Conference, where we invented Saturday, we get treated to that annual tradition where the schedule suddenly becomes what comes after a church lady's hug. It's cupcake week in the SEC, when otherwise proud programs dig deep into the pantry to find opponents whose primary athletic achievement is having a bus that starts. Georgia plays someone who sounds like the winner of a country spelling bee. Alabama takes on a directional school that probably had to borrow helmets. Florida plays the local YMCA. Auburn scheduled a team whose mascot is fear of flying. It's the kind of weekend where a defensive coordinator can spend 3 quarters listening to fishing podcasts and never miss a thing. Don't get me wrong, I understand why it happens. The SEC has spent the last 2 months beating one another senseless with frying pans. They want a breather, a little time to ice their wounds and practice touchdown celebrations they haven't gotten to use since September. But mercy, it makes for wretched television. You could flip over during halftime and find more drama watching squirrels fight over a pecan. What we're all really doing, whether we admit it or not, is killing time. We're pacing like a man waiting for his brisket to hit the stall. We're flipping channels, refreshing scores, staring into the middle distance. Because the truth is simple and sad. We're ready for the playoffs. We're ready for meaningful football. The kind that raises blood pressure, ends marriages, and makes grown men talk to televisions like they owe us money. We want the matchups we've argued about since August. The stakes so high you can feel them in your fillings. The drama that reminds us while we clear our schedules every fall. But instead, this weekend feels like a layover in Atlanta. Unnecessary, crowded, and making everyone a little irritable. So we'll endure it. We'll pretend to care. We'll watch the Big Ten trudge through its geographical scavenger hunt while the SEC runs scrimmages with broadcast rights. And then soon we'll finally get to the good part. Because Lord willing and the creek don't rise, the boring weekends are almost behind us. And thank heavens for that. This weekend, I believe I'll mow the yard, change the oil in the pickup, and maybe teach the dog to fetch the remote. Anything's got to be more exciting than watching Michigan play Maryland at 3:30 in the afternoon on a channel I didn't even know I had. Saturday's supposed to be a religion down here. Right now, it feels like a Tuesday night bingo game at the VFW. All that being said, the Trojans are definitely running directly into a buzzsaw. Give me the Ducks.
Wow, Uncle Kenny.
Uncle Kenny goes on and on. He's not happy about the weekend, but let me say this. I don't like to go against family. I'm with Uncle Kenny on this one, and I think that the big thing about Oregon this season, against my predisposition against that other school, Oregon, despite not being electric, is 9-1, 6-1 in the Big Ten Conference. They haven't needed the Oregon offense of old that we've grown accustomed to. They haven't even needed, I don't know what they wear on Saturdays, but they haven't needed the highlights of ESPN loaded down with the latest uniform combo with the O or a wing on the side of a helmet. Oregon just keeps winning. I like the Ducks. I like the Ducks on Saturday. I like the Ducks big on Saturday.
Wow, big, huh?
Big.
Yeah. You know, I agree with Uncle Kenny when it comes to it is that week of college football. It really is. There are some decent games out there. Not too many in the SEC as we went through. There are a couple. He mentioned Florida. I think Florida actually plays Tennessee or something. I don't know. Something I can't remember. But anyway, there are some decent games in the SEC, but nothing to really get your blood going. Georgia and Alabama all play those, those cupcake games. We'll see, but it's college football. It's been an exhausting year, like we said at the beginning, but it is rearing its ugly head to be over this season. And although that there's some people that in this business that watch college football like we do, study college football like we do, as much as it is exhausting, it still isn't it's a good exhaustion, man. I mean, we love this sport. I don't know if we're loving it as much as we did in past because of how NIL and transfer portal and all of that is changing the landscape of college football. It's different, but it's still the greatest sport ever. And I'm going to miss it when it's over. That's for sure. But I have nothing else. Chicken, you got anything?
Jesus won, and I am all crowed out.
All right, guys, love us, follow us, like us, share us, tell someone, tell a neighbor. We're growing. I love seeing that. Love you. Deuces.